Welcome to the Chronically Well podcast, where we have real conversations with community that needs to be heard. On today, I have the wonderful honor of speaking with Dr.
Yes, doctor, first in my family.
Dr. Alisha Brown. Could you please give a summary of who you are?
I'm Dr. Alisha Brown, first in my family. I still get chills because, that graduation was less than a year ago. But prior to that, born and raised Jersey girl, always had a passion for the arts. So I grew up, taking dance lessons, jazz, tap, ballet, you name it. Was even on a competitive dance team back in the day. Initially, I thought I wanted to be a medical doctor. So I did all of the bio, pre-med, AP classes, you name it. It was on my transcript. And I got to college and was burned out by all the science classes. I took a intro to PR class as a break, just an elective. And the next thing I know, I was picking up the phone and calling my dad and saying, I think I'm changing my major. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm transferring colleges too. So I switched to communications. My career has, taken me to a few interesting cities. So my first big girl PR job was with MGM Resorts right out of undergrad. Then I shifted into nonprofit and education communications. Today, I have a small PR firm, Alicia Monique PR, and I'm Alicia Monique Public Relations. So if you go to my website, it's AliciaMoniquePR.com. But I have a small PR firm working with women in small-owned businesses. I worked with bigger brands before. They have the budget, great for them. But when it comes to our community, we need somebody else to champion us. So it was intentional for me to work with small and women-owned businesses. And because I don't have enough to do and I want to put my new degree as a doctor in education to use, I am a adjunct professor at my alma mater now, teaching marketing and communications classes. So I like what I do.
Look, you said you like what you do. It sounds like you truly enjoy and love what you do. Like, I can hear it. Like, you want to bring other people along in this journey also.
Yes. Early in my career, I didn't always feel seen and heard because a lot of the spaces that I was in were, obviously predominantly white. And when I introduced ideas to the table, sometimes they were just outright dismissed. And I was like, okay, what am I doing here? So I didn't want anybody else to feel that way, which is why I chose the business that I did. And, the past 2 years, things have come into alignment for me. Because before I wasn't even sure if I liked working in PR and communications anymore. And that's just because of the environment that I was in. It was not super supportive. And what really shifted for me, or helped me identify what's for me and not for me, was right around the time of my diagnosis.
Let's tap into that.
Yeah.
We're gonna tap into that very early because I do have two notes from you about, and one of them is talking about your diagnosis. So you said around the time, when the evolution of you was transforming into this present day Dr. Alisha Brown is around the time you were diagnosed.
Yes, it was. So I walked away from my last large corporate gig right before or right around the pandemic. And when it was time to return to work, I just couldn't. I was like, my spirit just said no. And I was like, I have to figure out what I want to do. I just know that going back to this particular organization is not it. Um, and that's when I decided to launch my business. So my PR firm was born June 2020. And, as I was building it, I knew I would be exhausted as a full-time entrepreneur, but I wasn't quite understanding the level of exhaustion that I had. Okay. Fast forward a year later, I had secured one of my first largest clients. It was a nonprofit organization. And, um, we're about halfway through the contract. Things are going really well. And my mom looked at me and she goes, "You just look skinny." And I'm like, "Well, I work out all the time, like I'm lean." But she's like, "No, but you lost a lot of weight." And I said, "No, I didn't lose weight." She was like, and I said, "Probably stress from work." And she was like, "Well, you shouldn't be that stressed out. You just," this is the nicest way of her telling me that I just look god awful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was in, I don't want to say denial, but how we can just like get into a rhythm and it's really hard for us to take a
Right.
step back from our own selves and be like, okay, you need a break to,
Look in
self-evaluate.
to look in the mirror.
To look in the mirror.
You had
Okay.
so much going on
I had
at the
so much going on. I'm transitioning out of one job, I'm building a business. And it wasn't until my mom made me step on a scale that I noticed a 25-pound difference. And I was like, well, where did that go? Um, Next thing I know, I am in urgent care and they tested me for everything. Diabetes was the last thing on the list. The nurse comes in, she's like, "Let me just do a finger prick just for, just to see." And we both looked at that number and I was shocked. And that was the first time that I had to like sit down and pause and go, okay, what am I doing? What is happening here? So after a nice long weekend stay in the hospital ICU, no insurance at the time, put a pin in that. Um, I sat there and was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of here, but when I do, I know that I don't want to go back to the work that I was doing, at least not with that particular client. Um, I really need to focus on things that matter to me. Okay. So, um, me selfishly, well, I don't want to call it selfish, being more intentional about my self care. And I think it's unfortunate that it took sitting in a hospital bed for a weekend to be like, hey, sis, you need a break. You need to love on you again. You need to really find what makes you happy. Because at that point, it's like I was good at communications, really good at PR, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I thought about exiting the field altogether at one point. And then after that hospital stay, I still continued to write and, I got more selective about the types of clients that I wanted to work with. A couple years after my diagnosis, I did start talk therapy, which was the best thing to further help me align. So the joy that you're hearing now, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I went down this list, I didn't deviate, and things are just really falling
Mhm.
into place. But prior to that moment, I felt like I was just grasping at nothing. Um, and then also having that diagnosis so late in life, it's like I'm relearning myself all over again at 35. Um, which is scary because you get to a certain age, you think you're settled in this being, and you're settled in your career, and then you get a diagnosis that just kind of knocks everything over. And as unfortunate as the diagnosis was, it is very fortunate because I had a chance to, you know, take a much needed pause, and rebuild a better version of me. Um, I don't think I would have stopped taking that pause before then. Um,
Yes, I did take a
Hard.
note that I first thank you, Mom. Mom, moms never stop looking out for us. Like
Never.
true motherly love.
Hmm.
There's nothing greater than um yes, your mom, she recognized her baby.
Oh, she did. She did. And it gets on as much as she gets on my nerves, and even my brothers
Mhm.
too, because she'll be like, "Oh, I noticed you have a new gray hair," and it's like, "Oh, just get away from me!" Like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I noticed you have this. Maybe you should, change your skincare regimen. I noticed you got a little pimple here," and I'm like, "Back off." But in that moment, she would not, and I'm glad she didn't back off because it was literally every day. Like, are you sure you're not losing weight? And I'm like, no, I'm still eating the same. My workout routine had not changed. Like, there were no other obvious symptoms that most people have, going into DKA. I didn't
Do
have any
you do you
other
think that
than
was because of your how much you were working out and active, both mentally and physically?
I think mentally was a drain because working out was my outlet.
Hmm.
And like I said, my time in the gym, what I was eating, things like that had not changed. Um, and I didn't believe my mom again until, I had stepped on the scale. But there was another telling moment. Um, I was in a Zumba class, and this is an instructor that I have been with for 3 years or so. So, I mean, I know the choreography like the back of my hand. And on this particular day, this was the weekend. Um, what is it? This was like a Monday leading up to me ultimately being diagnosed as in the hospital that weekend. I could not keep up with the steps. And I'm like, I know the routine, but my body is just not moving with me. And there was another woman in the room. She is my now personal trainer and really good sister friend. Um, that was one of my first days interacting with her. And she goes, "Sis, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I was like, "I have a lot on my mind from work." And my friends that know me, like when I'm thinking about stuff, like you can see it's written all over my face. I would be a terrible poker player because of how much goes on up in here. And she was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just stressed from work." And I got home and my mom was like, "How was class?" And I was like, "I couldn't remember any of the moves." And I said, "And you know what it felt like? It felt like, when I was a little kid back on that dance recital stage and I forgot the move and I'm just standing there and I'm embarrassed and all I want to do is like run off, stage left." Um, and I was like, "I think I'm just exhausted." And she was like, "I don't know, maybe something else is going on." She kept pressing and pressing. And then I'm glad she did. um,
Yeah. You had
and
you had a few people looking out
a
for
few
you.
people, a few
Yes.
people, and a new person that I didn't expect. And like I said, she has become one of my closest friends since then. But it was an interesting moment because, prior to then in my career, I didn't feel seen. People were like, "Oh, Alicia said something in the meeting. We don't remember what it is." Um, to that moment where, I'm seeing and people are checking on me and I'm like, this is weird. And it shouldn't feel weird, like you should want people to check on you, right? You should be surrounded by people who just genuinely care about you. And it was like in that moment that I realized all the other people that I had worked with that had seen me day in and day out, nobody thought that what was happening with me was weird, or maybe they just didn't care. So when people asked me if I was okay, I was like, well, should I not be okay? Um, but now when I'm asked, I appreciate them checking on me. So it's
Yeah, because like you said, like it was in the midst of the pandemic.
Mhm.
I was thinking like many people probably weren't paying as close attention to anyone besides themselves.
Right.
Right, we're just
Oh,
busy. Like, let me keep myself healthy, strengthened, alive, and well, because
exactly.
I got a family to go home to and make sure they stay protected. All those things.
All of those things. And, I initially did not notice my weight loss because I'm working from home during the pandemic. I'm in hoodies and leggings all day. So for me, my clothes still fit. But my mom was like, yeah, no, they don't. Um, you know, I'm not saying you look terrible, but something is definitely off with my child. And, I'm to say I'm grateful for my mom is an understatement. Because she has seen me through everything. So, um, my diagnosis was smack in the middle of my doctoral program. So I had to take a pause. I didn't know if I was going to make it, but she was a constant cheerleader. On days when, I'm experiencing insulin resistance or whatever, she's like, let's go for a walk. Oh, by the way, I was at the store. I saw this new organic product. This will work for you. Like, my mom is the unofficial like health doctor in the family. All of her siblings call her when they have some random symptom, and she's like, "Oh, well, I read on Dr. Wells or I read in Prevention Magazine." Like, she's always there. Um, so gotta love moms.
You have to. Um, like I remember my own diagnosis. You were just telling a story about losing 25 pounds and being an adult and everything. I'm like, I had lost near 40 pounds upon
Wow.
my diagnosis, and I didn't even know until I stepped on that scale in the hospital. And it
Mhm.
said, like, I was typically about 180, 185, and I was 144. And I'm like, and like the thoughts that come to her head, like, we think the worst, the absolute worst.
Um, I remember stepping on that scale, and the first thought that I had, other than holy shit, like where did that 25 pounds go? I beat myself up a little bit too, about not recognizing my own need. It's like, how did I get here? You know, how much red tape did I run through? Like, even though my body was set, telling me in other ways, Alicia, you're exhausted, you need to sit down. I had a moment like, okay,
You're a people pleaser,
what am I abusing? Yes, in a way. Um, I'm not going to say in a way. Yes. Um,
but you weren't doing the things for
but I wasn't
yourself.
doing that for me. And I was like, how dare I not do these things for me? Um, but a lot of that is, just culturally speaking, how I was raised. My family on both sides is Black and Asian. And I remember growing up, it's like, okay, cool, go ahead and, and get your degree, but you should really be focusing on family at this point. So I'll never forget, as soon as I finished undergrad and at my graduation, everyone's like, well, what are you going to do next? And I was like, I'm going for my master's, right? I was like, because I'm doing this for me. My great grandmother, um, she was happy with my decision. She was like, that's right. Because here I am breaking the mold, right?
Mhm.
Um, it was some of the men in my family that were like, but you already have your bachelor's degree. Like, that's enough for you. You should be settling down and, getting married and have kids. And I was like, but that's not what I want.
Right.
Um, and I think I was in my yeah, I was in my early 20s at that point. That was the first time I had vocalized like something in such a large setting. Like I had shared with my mom, like, I'm going to be a doctor one day, and she's like, fine, do it. Whatever makes you happy. Because that's how her mom supported her. Okay. Um, but yeah, just by way of culture, the women in my family, we were not coached to put ourselves first. Okay. We were always pouring into everyone else. And then it's like whatever was left over is what we got. And, you know, yes, you should love on family, but you have to pour into yourself first. And me being a people pleaser and just, also very achievement oriented, like I have to finish this task and then I can rest. You know, what I learned post diagnosis is no, get your rest. And when you have the energy to manage and accomplish that thing, you will. It will be there. Um,
It's taken I guess it's taken like a few people, a few events that occurred in your life that tried to stop you.
mhm.
Things that happened, such as the pandemic, this diagnosis, you finishing your bachelor program, and people telling you you need to go into family planning and whatnot. It took a few events for you to say, "No,
Right.
I got to take care of Alicia. Like,
Exactly.
like Alicia is the one I should be focused on."
Mhm.
Because you said like you had everything going, like pre-pandemic, beginning of the pandemic, like, but you weren't filling your bucket.
Right.
You were just in this rotation that, I mean, I mean, I would say you probably were successful, like in
Right.
this
But
sense of like,
we all get into a routine and we just get on that hamster wheel and it's just like, all
hmm
right, as long as it keeps going, we're doing something. But we might not really be progressing toward the thing that is is best for us,
right.
or that we would get the most joy out of. So I remember going into this year, um, I asked one of my girlfriends, I was like, what do like what's your resolution? What are you doing differently? And she was like, you know what, this year? She was like, I'm the muse. She said, it's all about me. And at first I was shocked by the statement. And then afterwards, and I was like, no, she's right. She's right. Like, you know, it should be about you, right? It should be about you, me, us pouring into our passions. Um, and just letting things fall in place as they should and not trying to force things. Um, you know, when I was in my 20s, I was hell bent on, climbing the corporate ladder, getting a title by a certain age. It was not, um, you know, I wasn't really
Today,
driven by it. Hmm.
today, you're changing that narrative.
Yeah.
You're writing your own script instead of falling in line with the chapters that have already had all of the prerequisites laid out.
Hmm.
Like,
And that's, I mean, that's a hard pill for others to swallow.
mhm,
Because they're like, oh, well, we thought you were going to do this. And I'm like, no, not doing it. Um, I changed my mind and that's okay. I think, you know, the diagnosis certainly made me more picky, right? About how I spend my time. And, for me, it's stress that drives my sugars up.
yes.
I remember joking with my mom, because again, she's like, I don't want to say she's in everybody's business, but she definitely knows what's going on in the family, and she does it out of care. That is how she shows love. And I remember her talking to me about a particular family topic, and I was like, I am so over this. And prior to my diagnosis, I was like, well, man, I said, you're raising my sugars, right? Not knowing that this was well on the way. And then another day, she's talking, this post diagnosis, she's talking to me. I'm wearing a glucose monitor at the time and it goes off. And I was like, see, I said, now I have medical proof that you stress me out. I was like, we can't do this anymore. Um, and she thought it was funny and not at the same
Mhm.
time. But I was like, I just wanted you to know that I have to set these boundaries, for a reason. So yeah, I've absolutely have become more picky about, how I spend my time and
Right.
energy. That's a
And
good thing.
mom,
I sleep better.
at the same time, mom, if you were to have on a continuous glucose monitor, you would notice that Alicia stresses you out a bit too.
Yes, or actually, she probably realized that it's
Right.
no her siblings. I think I'm her favorite person on the planet.
Well,
I think it's everybody else in the family that stresses her out.
I get you. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be, right?
Right, right.
Now, you're during your diagnosis, you said you were 35 years young,
Yeah,
not old, 35 years young. You knew everything about your life at that time, in that moment. Like
it's
you
yeah.
were 17 years post high school graduation. You were living an entire second life as an adult. Like,
Right. Yeah.
ha-
Um, that that was the moment when I was just like, okay, do I even know who the hell I am? Um, to get to 35 and literally overnight, be diagnosed. Because again, I didn't have any of the classic symptoms other than,
the weight
just the
loss.
extreme fatigue. And then, the obvious but not so obvious weight loss to me. But that was it. I didn't have the excessive thirst, I didn't have the, ridiculous cravings, frequent urination. Like I didn't have any of those telltale signs. So when I went to urgent care, like I said, they tested me for everything, even a pregnancy. And I was like, family planning went out the window a long time ago. So, like, don't even waste the pregnancy test. But they were like, no, we just have to, test you for everything. And when the nurse came back into the room, she said, Alicia, I'm really shocked by what I'm about to tell you. And I'm like, what? I got like 48 hours to live? She said, you were having your first diabetic episode. And I was like, come again? She said, you are in diabetic ketoacidosis right now. She was like, your glucose test, she said, everything is showing signs that you're in danger, girl. You need to go to the hospital right away. Um, and this is during the pandemic. So normally, during doctor's appointments, I'd walk out, my mom would be sitting right there in the lobby. Um, and this time she wasn't. She had to wait out in the car, because of the pandemic. And I slid into the passenger seat and I was like, excuse my language, but who the fuck in our family has diabetes? Where did this come from? Okay. I mean, like I was having flashbacks to like, okay, I remember doing a family tree back in the second and third grade. Like we mapped out I know everything about my family. Where did this come from? Okay. And why now? And she was just like, that's the diagnosis they gave you? And I was just like, who, like, I wanted to be able to, I don't want to say blame somebody. Um, but I was like,
You needed to figure it out
I
then.
needed to figure it out. I was like, cause my parents don't have it, my grandparents, great grandparents. I was like, wow, what talent to skip, so many generations and land on me, right? Um, so I get to the hospital and, the nurse that I had at urgent care, she was one of the last nice people that I spoke to um, over the course of that weekend. Because when I got to the hospital um, and was finally seen by the emergency room doctor, they didn't read the note that said first time onset DKA.
Mhm.
All they saw was DKA. They saw a non-white woman um, in that hospital bed and automatically assumed that I was a bad diabetic.
Blame.
Bling. The first thing the ER doctor said to me was, oh, so what did you do? Did you party too hard this week? Did you enjoy too many carbs? Did you stretch your insulin? And I was like, in my mind, I'm still processing what the nurse had just shared with
Mhm.
me. Okay. And I'm looking at this guy like he's crazy. Like, are you serious? Why are you talking to me like this? Okay. Do you not see that I am scared? I am confused by this diagnosis and why I'm even here. And you're automatically accusing me of not taking a medication that I didn't even know I needed. Um, and that was the conversation with every doctor that walked in the ER room that I was in, and ultimately the ICU room that I was in. Every doctor said the same thing. Like, well, what did you do to get yourself here? What did I do? I was living my best life, or so I thought. I've always, for the most part, have eaten well, have exercised. I mean, I played sports all my life. So yeah, I'm confused as to why I have a faulty pancreas at this point. Okay. Because all my other vital signs, every other, physical exam I had leading up to that moment was great. I said, so, please don't talk to me like I should know better. Okay. Don't talk to me like whatever profile you have of a diabetic in your mind, I'm not that person. Um, you know, Please talk to me like the intelligent Black woman that I am. And oh, it also clearly shows in my profile what my education level is. Like, can you just talk nice to me? And nobody in that hospital did. Um, thank God, my brother's girlfriend is a nurse, so she was the one familiar face that I was able to see because she worked the floor that week that I was diagnosed. So thank goodness for her. And my best friend, who is a classic type 1 diabetic, she was diagnosed when we were 4. Um, she was the one that called me in the hospital and said, "Hey, girl, sorry to hear about the diagnosis. This is what you can expect. They're going to come in the room and ask you these questions and tell you that you need these things. Accept this, refuse that, and tell them that you have a support system so they will let you out sooner." And in my mind, I'm like, let me out sooner. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in a prison. So after I got off the phone with her, the doctor comes in. He was like, all right, well, we'll see how you do in ICU for 3 days, and then we'll move you to the regular hospital floor for like another 5. And I was like, no, I'm going home. Your ER doctor said I could be out of here by Monday. We're leaving by Monday. Um,
I would have been like, I'm planning for Sunday.
Listen, I really was. But, by the time they do discharge paperwork and all, people take their time. I didn't get out of there until, I'm going to say early Monday afternoon. I had an evening nurse. I forget her name, but she was also type 1. And she walked over to me. She actually took the time to read my chart. And she walks over to me and she said, "Are you scared?" I said, "Out of my mind. Out of my mind." I said, "I don't know where this came from, if it even runs in the family." And I said, "What I do know is that a birth control that I was on could have caused insulin resistance over time. Um, I'm going through all these other things that I know." I said, "But I don't know how to navigate this moving forward." And, sis gave me the playbook. She goes, "Well, first of all," she said, "did anybody come in and give you like the how to manage diabetes manual," which is like this thick, by the
Right.
way.
Diabetes 101.
Yes. I said no. And she was like, "Okay, I'll be right back." She comes back with this huge book. She goes, "Read it. Um, Here are the things." Like, gave me a crash course to, you can order this off the hospital menu, avoid this. When you leave here, they're going to put you on, the basic insulin, or what they call the poor advanced pump, Lantus. And she was like, when you go and see your first endocrinologist, she was like, they're going to try to push other things on you. She was like, Alicia, she's like, I'm not your doctor, but I will tell you, you don't need all of that stuff right away. And I was like, okay, thanks. And she said, if you read this book and do your homework, she said, you will be out of here before I come back for my next night shift, which was Monday. And when I tell you, I studied everything and got the hell up out of there. Um, and I'm grateful for her sharing that information with me because when I met with the endocrinology department after my after being discharged from the hospital, I was paired with a another nurse practitioner who immediately got on the call. My first call with her was virtual because of the pandemic. Immediately got on the call and was like, okay, well, we're going to prescribe you some fast acting insulin. Here is the sliding scale that you're going to use, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I could not get a word in with this woman. And I was just like, wait. And I'm remembering what the previous nurse told me. She was like, they're going to try to, fast track you and give you something that you don't need just yet. But the original nurse practitioner, she just kept talking over me. And I was like, okay, this is not helpful. And I ended up leaving that call more overwhelmed than anything else. So she had already called in a script that I didn't ask for. And then the office calls back and says, oh, we're going to schedule a follow-up with, I want to say her name was like Marianne or something. No, Rosemary. That's what it was. Rosemary.
Close.
Yeah. They're like, we're going to, and I said, oh, no. I said, if the follow-up appointment has to be with her, I don't want to see her. Please, find me another doctor. And at this point, I had reached out to my primary care, she's an Indian woman. And she'd been my primary care doctor since I was like 10. So when I told her about my diagnosis, she was like, not my Alicia. She was like, oh my gosh. She was like, so have you found a new endocrinologist yet? And I said, no. So she recommended someone else. And so when the endocrinology office called back and said, oh yeah, we're going to set you up with Rosemary again. I was like, no, you're not. If it can't be with this doctor, I'm going to find another practice. And I was with that particular endocrinologist for just about 2 years. She was helpful, but she wasn't the best listener. So as I'm sharing with her what my work and personal lifestyle is like, and I know what my triggers are as far as stress, she's like, well, just stop being stressed out. And I was like, okay, I'm just, yeah, as a Black woman, that is so easy.
Just
not
remove the hormones, huh?
Correct. And during my appointments, because me being the super detailed person that I am, like this little journal, I had logged, and this is before I, started wearing any type of diabetes technology. Like I had manually logged all of my sugars and I kept notes about what I ate that day. So the first visit with her, I showed her the journal. I was like, hey, like, am I managing this right? Like, how do I do this? She basically flipped through the book and was like, this is cute, but it's not sustainable. And I'm like, well, show me what is. Okay. Or, help me manage this in another way. No guidance on that. Well, because, I regularly walk and work out and eat well, when my A1C went back down to a 5.4, just being on Lantus, not on anything else, she accused me of skipping meals. Not, asking me first, like, what is your activity like? What are you doing? It was just outright, oh, your numbers. So you went from an A1C of a 10.4, because that's what I was at diagnosis, to 3 months later, back down to a 5 on just a little bit of insulin. You must be skipping meals. And I'm like, but I'm not. So the next, fast forward to the next quarterly visit, um, I had a lot of stress at work and my numbers went up to an 8. But it came back down, you know, 3 months later, back in that healthy 6, 7 range. And the moment it went to an 8, she was like, your diabetes is completely out of control. You don't know what you're doing. You need to see a dietitian. And I'm like, no, I can tell you what happened leading up to this. And I was like, I don't think this is, that number may have been true for that moment, but I'm not going to stay here. Okay. Like,
Right.
I had a bad month. Let's call that what it is. Um, but she refused to work with me unless I committed to an insulin pump right then, and I was like, well, I don't want to do that.
Because she wanted to make things easier for herself,
For
not thinking
herself.
about you.
It had nothing, had her decision had nothing to do
She was
with
too
me.
busy being black and white, A and B, instead of everything else.
And
Thinking
that's
about
when,
there's so many variables.
and that's when I really heard what she was saying at that point. And I'm like, I'm in this moment reflecting on all of our previous doctor's visits together. And she was just going down a checklist. Oh, you're this age. How many carbs are you eating each day? Are you thinking about kids? Okay, because if you do plan to have kids, an insulin pump would be a good idea to help manage sugars better throughout the day, blah, blah, blah. It was just a checklist. Okay, numbers are in range. See you in 3 to 4 months. And, I tolerated that for 2 years because I'm like, well, she can't be that terrible. My PCP recommended her. I only
And
have to
she
deal with her
and she was
once.
all you knew. Like
She was all I know. So once she, tried to force me into wearing a technology that I wasn't ready for, and based on my active lifestyle and just how clumsy I am, I'm like, I'm going to knock that pump off. There's no way. I mean, I already knocked the little sensor off my arm these days anyway. And I was like, okay, she's not hearing me. So I did some research. I called moms and I was like, hey, mom, I know because she works for a health
mhm.
insurance plan. And I was just like, I know you know some nurses and doctors within your network that accept my insurance. Like, can you recommend anybody? Like, isn't one of your nurse friends also diabetic? And she was like, yeah. She was like, give me a minute. So, like I said, mom's to the rescue. She helped me find my new endocrinologist, and he is wonderful. Um, when I got to his office, he told me that he laughed at my patient intake notes because one of the things that sent me out or kept me from dealing with my previous endocrinologist before is when she made me meet with a dietitian, and I was open to that because I'm like, all right, I don't know what I don't know. But I'm 36 at this point. No, 37 at this point, meeting with this dietitian. And this woman felt that it was appropriate to bring out a pancreas puppet to talk to me about carbs and things. And I was like,
You
um,
have my profile.
correct. It says damn near doctor at this point. Why are you bringing out a puppet to talk to me? This is insulting. And so when I met with the new endocrinology team and they were asking me, well, why are you switching? What happened? And I told them about the pancreas puppet. They were like, this is unreal. I said, no, that's what happened. It was very insulting. I want a doctor that is going to listen to me. Um, I believe less is more. I would prefer to take a more holistic approach to my treatment plan. I didn't appreciate that all the other doctors and nurses that I had the unfortunate, you know, misfortune of crossing paths with. I said, everybody tried to place me in a bucket, or fit me into a good diabetic, bad diabetic profile, whatever. And I was like, I am not that person. And I just remember telling everyone, like every conversation that I had was, I am not that typical diabetic. I'm not whatever it is you think I am. I want somebody that is going to, take into account that I work out. Oh, and by the way, I'm a woman of a certain age. So hormones are always going to play into this. And I am not ready to wear a pump. And I was heard on all of those points. Um,
They
and
they were like weaponizing you,
mhm,
like attacking you,
mhm,
traumatizing you from
right.
onset
What's
and
that?
stigmatized.
Correct.
Like you are a black woman and life is not simple. It's
Hmm.
definitely not simple for you.
No. So I have,
There's
go ahead.
when people are newly diagnosed with a chronic health condition, I fight for this as a patient advocate that they should equally meet with or have the opportunity to sit down and have conversations with someone in the psychotherapy field, whether it's a therapist, a mental health counselor, because we need someone to just aid in our development with this new disease, just mentally first. Like, you weren't ready for all of these things. I mean,
Nope.
today we're still not ready for it.
Hell no. I, just celebrated my fourth anniversary and everyone's like, oh, you got it figured out. You're managing it so well. And I said, managing it well, but figuring it out always, always. Um, I mean, I take a best guess with, carb count and everything, and we keep it moving. There's always something new that I'm learning about my body and how it responds. And it was important for me to have a care team that understood just that. And when I had told my new endocrinologist, it was a black doctor, which was very hard to find. Okay, black doctors, there's very few. Those that work in endocrinology, they're like unicorns. Okay.
I
Almost
have
not.
to.
So,
I had selected them.
yeah, when I told him, I was like, I am not a typical classic type one. I know I'm not. Um, and I was like, I've managed 2 years, on just long acting insulin. They tried to force me into a pump. I don't think that makes sense for me. I'm here for a second, more so third opinion, because, the first nurse I worked with, I was like, she ain't it.
Mhm.
Um, and he was like, all right. He said, I know you turned down diabetic tech devices in the past. He was like, but I want you to try wearing a Libre 3. He said, this way I can see what your sugars are like during the day. If you are just as active as you say you are, I will be able to see those trends. That will help. He also redid all of the blood work and also did the tests that the hospital did not do. And one of the tests that they skipped would have clearly pointed out, or would have clearly pointed out that I had LADA. Okay, so I was right in my assumption. What my gut was telling me, okay, I'm not a classic type one. Okay, I'm
Not, not yet.
not yet, not yet. It's a slow progression there.
Hmm.
Um, and he was like, no, he said, Alicia, you have LADA. He said, um, which is latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. And he said it has characteristics of type 1 and 2. He said, which is why you have managed this long. He said, without being on insulin and then eventually just only needing a little bit in your 30s. He said, your pancreas is slowing down. He was like, but, you know, we can certainly modify the treatment and He said, when you're ready for a pump, you're probably, much older. He was like, but we can manage as long as you do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, this is great. And he didn't just, you know, um, lay out a plan and not provide, not allow me the opportunity for any input. He also shared research articles with me, and he was like, he said, the research around LADA, so he said, especially for Black women, is very low. He said it's because one, they didn't think, and you got to love American
Hmm.
medical. They didn't think that Black people could get diabetes
Right.
ever. It was reserved for rich white men.
Hmm.
And we had this dialogue. And then, first appointment with him, he recommended a book, um, which I read, and it's crazy. It's what is it? By Arlene Tuchman. It's the Diabetes: A History of Race and Disease. So one of the
I've read
first.
that many times over. I
Oh
did,
my gosh!
but we got to tap into this because
Yes,
I've shared that book so much, dating back to I think 2019. I started sharing that book because I'm a research nerd. Like I love science, I love history. Like those are my things. I know I've told you that before. Like science
yes,
is my thing, but history is also.
it is.
And I was just researching. Like one day, like I was just sitting at home, and I was like history of Black people and diabetes. And I was like, I want to find like the history of when like the first person of color was given insulin. And I thought it would just be like, bam, Google search, there you go.
No.
Not at all. It took, I was 2 decades post insulin being readily available for everyone else before I
Because
found.
they didn't think that we could get the disease. It was only reserved for rich white men who were stressed out, um, mostly Jewish men. And I mean, I still go back to this book. I still have,
I have a
um,
PDF file of it somewhere.
like I have little flaps on. It's like, okay, when I need to return to something. But I'm reading it, and every chapter is blowing me away. And I'm like, see, I'm not crazy. When I tried to tell them that this was my problem,
Mhm.
they're like, oh no, couldn't be her. Not possible. Um, and then, so like I said, that was my first appointment with him. And he was like, here, I got some recommended reading for you. And I was like, thank you for speaking to my inner nerd.
Right.
Thank you for like seeing me as a whole intelligent human being and, you know, um, just taking interest. So as part of our, my quarterly appointments with him, we're always exchanging some type of journals or recommended reads. The last book that I shared with him was Legacy by Dr. Uche Blackstock.
Hmm.
And in the opening chapter, she talks about meeting with a patient during a pandemic. She's in the ER, and the relief, like the patient looked at her and she had this look of relief once she realized, oh my gosh, this is a Black doctor coming to talk to me finally.
They're going to
It
see
was
me.
the same type of relief that I had once I found the right endocrinologist, because before then, um, I dreaded those appointments, you know. Um, I didn't think, feel like my doctors were listening to me before then. Fast forward to meeting this new endocrinologist, I have a better overall care team, um, and a new primary care, because my previous one has since retired from the field. But he made sure that there was not a gap there and paired me with another doctor who is also a really good listener. And during our check-in, she was like, Alicia, have you ever talked to um, a therapist? She goes, I know you have a good system around you. Okay. She said, sounds like you have supportive friends and family. So because of my change in diet, my dad is the one that really does all the cooking. My mom does some things, but my dad is the cook in the family. Um, like he's even switched up, you know, the foods and everything. So she's like, I know you have a great team around you, caring family, you have friends. Most of the women that I work out with, they're all nurses. So I always am very fortunate to have many safe spaces where I can walk into. Um, and I know that that squad is not going to let anything happen to me. Um, and she goes, but not everybody is always going to understand what you're going through. And she was like, you know, sometimes you just need to talk it out.
Mhm.
She's like, there are going to be things that are frustrating that you're not like, even if you do share it with family, she was like, they're not going to get it. Um, so, a couple of months of talk therapy proved to be amazing for me. And it's like, okay, here's where I have the support, here's where I don't, but I know where to go get the support that I need now. I know how to better advocate for myself. Um, things just started to click. And during that talk therapy session, I made one of my first sessions, I had made a list of non-negotiables as it related to work in my personal life, but more so work because that was always the thing that had
Mhm.
me like going before and running through all of the red tape when my body was clearly saying, okay, you need to go sit down. Um, so, on that list, I had said that, my next career is really going to be aligned with my passions. It's not just going to be a job. Um, yes, a certain dollar amount in mind, and it had to, whatever project I worked on, had to allow me to ease into my day. Okay. I really love slow mornings. Coffee, a little reading, then go for my jog. And I'm like, whatever I do next, large project, small client project, that morning time cannot be interrupted.
Right. You have
Um,
to be clear right here. Mhm.
and for where everybody has like, I always said I'm going to do a vision board. I've never done it.
I
Um,
haven't either.
but writing it down and looking back at it and like, oh yeah, I did that. Okay,
Look,
this.
I have this notebook in front of me. This is almost like a vision board. I have filled up like five of these since I've been like recording with people over the last 11 months.
I can't tell you how many little journals I
Mm,
have. I'm like, okay, I was like, this one is for journaling post one of the books that I've read. This other one is for journaling about the future. This one is like random affirmations that my girlfriends and I have, shared that I go back to. But yeah, lots of notebooks.
right. I did want to tap into something. So you did mention about a short while ago about like how you like switched gears like during the pandemic and stepped into like who you are today. Um, I say like no one came out of the pandemic the same.
No,
I mean, if you did, then that's a you
that's a good
issue,
or a bad thing.
right? Because I mean, the global pandemic, like
hmm
seriously, like
Yeah.
you had to take some time to self reflect, evaluate, and
hmm
decide, like, okay, is this helping me? Am I maximizing my potential and my growth? Am I doing the things that are aligned with who I want to be? How I can show up for my family, those who I love most, and all
Right.
of those things, and myself.
hmm
Like during the pandemic, like 10 years before like that whole decade before the onset. I mean, I was working in media literacy as an educator, instructor, um, at every grade level from elementary, college, and did a lot of PDs,
hmm
with different professional companies and everything. But like the pandemic made me sit down and say, like, well, what do you truly love and
Right.
want to do? And I said, like, everyone knows, like, I truly love our people. And during the pandemic, they were like, the rates of people of color catching COVID with chronic health conditions. like that were passing were
Mhm.
at this e- extreme high rate. And I
Right.
said, I need to be able to sit down and have conversations with our people,
Hmm.
give them or share with them some of the lessons that I've learned in life, whether they're lived experience or education. Like
Hmm.
I've worked in the mental health field as an art and trauma therapist for many years. I said, well, I want to tap into that some more. I've
Hmm.
worked with families and as a patient advocate in hospitals. I want to tap into that. I want to maximize my time, do the
Right.
things that I truly love. And like we're seeing, like these are our babies.
Right.
Like they're growing, they're maturing. The world sees them now. Like
Yeah.
Dr. Alisha Brown, we see you now.
Thanks. Feels good to be seen. It really does.
Uh,
It really does.
You
Um,
deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you. So do you.
We do. And we deserve to support each other.
Hmm.
Be that shoulder to lean on, that beacon of hope and that beacon of light that tells us like that tunnel doesn't end,
No,
it
no.
continues. Today, how many years are you into your diagnosis?
4 years.
4 years. Four
4 years.
years into your diagnosis. We know you spoke about it. There's so many things that are misunderstood about diabetes,
Hmm.
people of color with diabetes, a woman of color with diabetes. Like people are still expecting you to pack it all up and like, I gotta go start this family right now.
No,
Like people are still expecting that.
no, this is not. Yeah, they'll be all right. I'm like maybe another lifetime, but for now, I'm like I'm just enjoying, as best as I can, this new journey that I'm on. Okay, I mean, pun intended. Plenty of highs and lows. Um, but I'm navigating it well. Um, and that's because I have a different level of care for myself. A solid support system and community around me. Um, and after the diagnosis and me finishing my degree, I was like, this diagnosis is not stopping me. I think I have surprised myself with you know other things that I am accomplishing or have been able to spend more time doing. So I have not shared this with everyone, only my trainer knows. But because I enjoy working out, I am working on my personal training certification. Um, and prayerfully, we'll be done with that by spring.
And
But
we definitely need more people that look like you, that represent like you,
so
that have the education, experience, all of those things to lead this.
Yeah, she had been nudging me for a while. I have subbed at a few of my trainers' classes, her group fitness classes. By the way, if anybody's in the New Jersey area, it's Studio Diva. It's amazing. We do have men that come and work out at the gym too, but it's really the ultimate woman cave.
Now, when you say New Jersey area, New Jersey is big. What
Yeah, okay, so
I don't know if I've asked you this before. Like, what part of New Jersey?
I'm in Burlington County, so I'm about 30 minutes from Philly.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, so if you're in the Burlington, South Jersey area, stop by. But she'd been nudging me for a while, and I am glad that I'm pursuing it because part of the training, um, there is a nutrition certification part, and I'm like, okay, well, selfishly, I'm bettering me, but the more I know, the more I can share
Right.
with my community, um, and you know, after my experience, it's like whatever information I have, I want to share it, because, God forbid. I mean, we know it's going to happen, but for the next Black woman that's diagnosed with diabetes, and she's like, "What the hell do I do with this now?" For anybody, um, I just want to show them that it is possible to manage through it. And whatever tips I could share to make sure that they don't end up with some, awful doctor or care team, I'm going to do it. So, but um, yeah,
You're
coming
making
out
that
on
happen.
the other side of the pandemic, I'm like, nope. I'm focusing on my health, and that's growing in different ways by way of the certification. I'm tapping back into my art. You had posted
Mhm.
a few pictures, and I was like, okay, it's time. I had actually pulled out a couple of paintings that I did pre-pandemic, but I'm going to be working on some new stuff very, very soon. And I mean, the writing continues. Just that's by way of my doctor, but um, yeah, this space that I'm in, it's really beautiful on the other side, I will say.
Now, you said you're Burlington County, New Jersey. See, I didn't know that before. I knew you were in the Jersey area, but I always think like, they're probably like near New York area.
Sure,
Like,
yeah,
but
that's what. Anytime
um,
someone asks me what part of Jersey, they're like, "How close is that to Camden?" or "Are you in New York?" Like those are the references,
mhm.
nothing in between. So,
Right, right. So, aside from the Chronically Woke podcast Instagram group for people of color, I run six other groups, and one
okay.
of them is Philly region. So it's Jersey,
Hmm.
all over Philadelphia area, Delaware area. So I'm going to invite you to that group because
Okay,
we like I host meetups and everything.
that's dope.
Yeah, that's my local group,
Okay,
my local chapter.
your local chapter. All right, looking
Hmm.
forward to it.
Right. I was talking about things that are misunderstood about you
Mhm.
and diabetes. Since your diagnosis of type 1 diabetes or LADA, has it affected you in any ways, like with relationships, whether it's family, significant others, peers, work?
Oh gosh, well, work, yes. Um, my diagnosis was really what motivated me to work for myself. Um, because with a previous employer, and I think this is the worst thing you can do to anybody that has any kind of chronic illness, especially an invisible disability like diabetes, is make them prove how sick they are.
Mhm.
And the line of questioning that I received from a previous employer was not appreciated, and it also let me know where I stood in that organization. So I eventually walked away. Um, and the types of projects that I engage in now, through my own LLC, I am vocal with my clients. Like, you know, I do have a disability and I do take breaks for myself. If I can't take care of myself, I can't help you with your work. And me being very transparent, not just with my clients, but also my students, um, has definitely created a different level of trust because they treat, everyone appreciates the level of transparency. I actually had a student come up to me at the end of class and she shared that she was also a diabetic. And she was like, she said initially there was a professor that was assigned to this class, but they ended up subbing me in last minute. And she said, when I saw the change of name, I didn't know what to expect. She said, but I'm so glad it's you. So since the diagnosis, you know, it has helped me identify workspaces that are for me and not for me. As it relates to my significant other, he is very, very supportive. When I text him, and said, the urgent care nurse said that I'm in diabetic ketoacidosis before I got to the hospital, which is only 10 minutes away from urgent care. he had already started doing research and he's texting me like, babe, this doesn't sound good. And, that's so crazy. We didn't know. Like, this was the furthest thing from our minds because he was like, you didn't have any of these symptoms. And I'm texting him back. I'm like, I know. But he has been amazing. And it's like, well, I'm going to make sure there are snacks in the house. And what does this mean if, your alarm goes off? What do I do? Like, he was ready to support. And he's also there to remind me, like, you've been through a lot. It's okay to rest. Um, Everything will fall in place as it should. He was like, he's known me to always be very hard on myself. Um, so he's like, it's all right. You can breathe now. Um, so if anything, our relationship, got stronger. And it was, I mean, it's lovely when you don't have to ask, right? When people just show up for you. Um, so for him, I am grateful. With my friends, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. So my best friend who is diabetic, um, she gets it, but she also teases me as being the poster child of a, good diabetic. She's like, oh, you do the post meal walk. She's like, I don't do those things. And I'm like, well, you do what works for you. And she was like, no, but my doctor says that I should be doing what you're doing. And I'm like, like I'm not trying to shame anybody. I don't want to shame anyone. So, um, and then I also have friends that do mean well. And by mean well, they're just looking out for me because they honestly they don't know what to expect. But I did have to correct some of my friends who were food shaming me. Like, should you be eating that? And I'm like, I'm allowed to have carbs. Okay. No human being can survive without carbs. Okay. So let's just stop right there. All right. Unless you're an alien. Okay. And you don't eat them at all. But I was like, I'm allowed to have bread. Yes, I can still eat pasta. Okay. I'm part Asian. I eat rice with every freaking meal. Like, these are things that are not going to change, but it's like, I would be mean if I had turned to them and said, well, girl, you sure you should be eating that cookie? Are you sure you should be doing that? Weren't you trying to lose some weight? So the biggest misconception I would say is, you know, what people think diabetics are allowed to have or not have. Um, you know, Having to use insulin to, support myself, it's not a punishment. And I certainly don't want anybody criticizing what I eat. I think having diabetes that already triggers enough distrust in yourself, right? I mean, I made it to age 35 and thought I knew who I was and every part of my body. And clearly I didn't. This diagnosis proved just that. Um, so I had to tell my friends that, we can't be around each other if you are going to constantly question everything that I do. There is a way to ask, but don't shame me. You're kind of doing what the doctors did. Oh, you indulge in too many carbs or whatever. I don't, if you want to know what I can eat, the answer is simple. Whatever it is you eat, within reason, and insulin, of course, but um, the shaming, and then probably the disbelief that there's no way you could have gotten diabetes at this age. And I'm like, no, it just is, you know. Um, when I was in the hospital, the doctors looked at me. They wanted to initially assume that I was a type 2, but because I wasn't overweight, they made the assumption that I was a type 1 who had just refused to take their insulin. Um, but I'd have to say that's how things shifted. Family has been supportive, significant other supportive, um, friends. Some of them just really don't know what to say. And there is a balance between, you know, giving someone grace, um, and, also checking people like, okay, mind your business. I got this. You've known me long enough to know I'm not going to self harm. So please don't talk to me as if I would.
There's so many misconceptions and perceived notions of what it is, what diabetes is. And
Mm-hmm.
that's mainly because of like the media's influence, like that impact of the media, like to especially today. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we go back and date, like I've been March 10th will be my 22nd anniversary,
I'm
22nd year living with diabetes.
gonna write that
And
down.
when when I think back like 20 years ago, I saw no one out in the open with diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
I may have seen an elder who did whatever in their home.
Mm-hmm.
My mom has worked in nursing specifically at a rehab center for the last, I want to say, almost 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
And even her, like having conversations with her, she would be like, oh, you're a type 1 diabetic, so you have to give insulin in your stomach. Like there was so many things like people do not truly know. And I'm like, Mom,
Mm-hmm.
I can give insulin any like anywhere there's fat, like fatty pockets, I can insert my insulin or whatever. And like even I have family members like cousins, like I have a type 1 diabetic first cousin, and her brothers swear they know everything. Like they'll
Right.
be like, I told her she should try this juicing diet. Or,
Oh my gosh. Yes. If somebody mentions cinnamon to me one more time,
Mhm.
oh, just I'm like,
They
do you think if the cure was in my spice cabinet,
right.
wearing this alarm, taking multiple shots a day? Um,
I also think it's
yeah.
because they don't see so many people like out in the open that are living with it that they think that oh yeah, because people got cured because they did do this. They did do the juicing and the cinnamon.
Yeah. It's or I know you hate hearing these stories where it's just like, oh, well, you can pray it away. And I'm like, no, no, that's not how it works. Um, it is very refreshing to see this, younger generation wearing the diabetes tech and stylizing it and making it their own. I remember the first 2 years of my diagnosis, I refused to wear a monitor because I did not want my disability on display. I'm like, I already feel like a target as a Black woman in America. I don't need anything else that's like, there's her weakness. It's right there. Um, and having a new endocrinologist definitely changed that. He was like, this is just so you can better understand you. Like, is that not the goal? And I was like, all right, man, you're right. Um, so I wear a monitor now. I'll take a break from it occasionally, um, because sometimes the alarms on the phone are just a little too much. Um, but I was watching the Grammys, and I think it was Beyond Type One also posted this in their stories. One of the dancers on the stage, you could see her Omnipod pump and her Dexcom was right there, and she's just living her best life. And I'm like, that's really cool. You know, it took me 2 years to get that type of confidence. Now it's there, and I'm like, with formal gown or not, like it's on display. Um, but yeah, me 2 years ago wouldn't have done it. Now I'm like, this is my superpower. This is part of my accessories, just like my earrings, anything else.
And it's something that aids in helping you, I mean, end your life like truly.
Mm-hmm.
Someday I hope that we will not have to wear these devices. Like truly, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And as we do wind down this conversation, I have to end with this, Dr. Alisha Brown, because you're a research nerd like myself,
Mhm.
and I love that. Like I wear that on my sleeves. Like, yes, yes, talk to me about anything to do with science, history, anything. Like I love it. But we do see the clinical trials, the research, the functional cures that have been presented, and people have been able to, like, you've been a type 1 for 4 years now. There
Mhm.
are people that have been able to live without the need for man-made insulin now for 5 to 6 years.
Mhm.
Someday, someday soon, hopefully in our lifetime,
Yes.
um, there will be a functional cure
Mhm.
for us. And on that day, a cure is here. And I already know you're maximizing your time because you got a whole lot going on in this bag. Like, look, you got chapters that I've written.
Mhm.
Got a lot going on, and it tells me like diabetes may be a burden, but it's not preventing or stopping you. It's just a little hiccup
Yeah, it is.
for
And I,
people
and
of
I get that
color.
I get that comment a lot. They're like, "Oh my God, I'm just so inspired that you're still doing everything." And I was like, "Was I supposed to stop?" You
Exactly.
know? And I think again, it just goes back to the misconception. It's like that your life is over
Mhm.
once you get a diagnosis like this, and it's like, no, your life isn't over. I mean, definitely a different journey or a detour, if you will, but it's also the opportunity to just really listen to your body. And, because of the society we live in, we're just conditioned to go, go, go and never ever think
Mhm.
of ourselves. So, um, yeah, if people think I'm an inspiration for living my life, then great. May they find the tools to do what's best for them too.
Right. I was recently in a conversation with a group of people, because I go through IVIG treatment for stiff person syndrome.
Mhm.
Um, and person was like, what do you do after your treatments, your infusion therapies? And I'm like, I keep going. And they're
Great.
like, what do you mean? I said, I have a schedule and I have a plan. Like, I'm trying to maximize my time. Like, like time here is short. I'm doing
Mhm.
everything I want to do. I got a family like I need to take care of and love and share
I
my
have to look
legacy, keep
forward
building on
to.
to this legend. Like, and they're
Right.
like, but don't you get migraines and feel nauseous sometimes? I said, yeah, I do. I said, but I gotta move forward. I said, that's
Right.
temporary. I said,
Hmm.
that's temporary. Like my lifespan is still the same as someone without it. So I
Right.
gotta do the things that are gonna help me continue living my life. And
Right.
they're like, oh, there's like, I
Yeah.
didn't know you could
No,
do
you get intentional about planning things that you
those.
really look forward to. So, for example, this year I'll be 40.
Welcome,
And
welcome to the club.
thank you. Thank you. Feels good. Um, but I have a list that I was like, I'm going to do 40 new things this year. And, in addition to working on my training certification, I signed up for two 5Ks. This will be my first time, participating in any races. So I have one in March and one in June with my girlfriends. It's Run the Vineyards. So yeah, that's my motivation. Go do a 5K and then sip wine afterwards. Um, but yeah, it's like I'm
Mhm.
still planning my life um, and still living it, and
Mhm.
you know, celebrating all the little things in between.
That's what life is all about.
Yeah.
Living it.
Hmm.
Like that's our ultimate goal is to continue living. We do have to take some extra steps,
Hmm.
but we still have the same amount of time as everyone else. We just gotta pocket what's most important. And
Hmm.
some things we truly are like, I'm cutting that off the list.
Right.
I'm not going to let that mess with my peace. I must protect my peace, my joy.
Right. You're not going to be triggering my glucose alarm.
Right, right.
Okay.
So on that day, that functional cure is here, and you found out, or you find out that you've been truly cured of diabetes. You don't have to worry about it for the remainder of your days. You have so much more time
Hmm.
to do everything and anything. What do you do on that day?
What do I do on that day? I'm throwing a party. I am. I am throwing a huge party with all of my friends. With everyone who has been on that journey with me. Um, that's how it was when I did my graduation party. There were people who I started that process with that I thought would be at the end, and they weren't there. But the right people were there. So I would throw a party again because I know the people who are on this journey with me and the ones who are supposed to be there to celebrate with me and for me to appreciate them because you know um, I am better because of the tribe that I have now. But yeah, huge party,
Huge
huge party,
party. And
huge
on
party.
that day, considering I'm only about 35 minutes southwest of you, I would
Oh, you're
love that.
a
And
better you know
I would
that
love
you
that
better be
invite.
there,
Yep. Bring the crew with me.
of course. Cake
Yes.
for everybody. Okay.
Cake for everyone. And I jot down these notes in every recording because I tell people on that day a functional cure is here. I have a list of things I'm going to do with our community.
Going to a party.
I have people that want to eat the cake. I have people that want to take trips without bags and just show up and do it. Like, yeah, let's make all of that happen because it's truly deserving for this life that we've lived. So, Dr. Alisha Brown, I truly, truly appreciate you for joining me on the Chronically Well podcast, where we have real conversations with the community that needs to be heard because you are truly someone that needs to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.